I appreciate the positivity, Robert. This is definitely exciting, creating agenda items. We have 12 people registered, so I'm going to give it just another minute or two to allow people to trickle in here, and then we'll get started. Just so y'all know, today of all days, they're working on Jordan's internet at his apartment, so he may be in and out. So I'm going to be running things, and he'll jump in either as he can or if he has connection or not. So just another minute or two, and we'll get started here. Feel free to use the chat setting to either harass me like Robert's doing or to ask questions. No, Robert, everybody can see your. Oh, wait, no, to panelists. Okay. Oh, great. Yeah, only Jordan and I can see your chat there, Robert. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, letting Robert have this kind of power now. All right. So if you guys can either use the raise hand function if you have a question or type it in chat and we'll move you over. To ask questions during this, feel free to jump in at any time and either ask a question, let us know if something's confusing, doesn't make sense, or you're unfamiliar with it. So we're going to record this meeting. This training is going to be up on the intranet on the video center for future reference. And then Jordan and I will be providing a how to create an agenda item procedure document, and then also some draft documents, templates for resolutions, ordinances, and then council communication items as well for you guys to use going forward after this. So hopefully this training and those slate of documents will help everybody going forward. So unless anybody has any objections, we're going to go ahead and get started. So just want to thank everybody for attending. We've set up these trainings because we have, in the last year and a half or so, had either new people come onto the city that haven't received a full training on Legistar, or maybe some people's responsibilities or job functions have shifted in the last couple of years, either due to COVID, remote work, or a variety of reasons that are now creating items in Legistar, or maybe there's been a new board or commission set up that you're now supporting, or it's just good to refresh everybody and get everybody on the same page of how things should look, feel, and the functions you can use in Legistar. So the items that we have for city council agendas, board and commission agendas, and any other public agenda that we publish through Legistar are done in a consistent manner. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen here. So whenever you first log into Legistar, you're going to see your main Legistar portal here. And so you have 4 main quadrants. Most of you in here probably aren't going to see this approval request quadrant down here, except for maybe 1 or 2 of you in here right now. So you can ignore that. The recent agendas section is where you can pull up agendas you've recently had or gone into and either edited, looked at items, or created. The recent files are going to be files that you've recently looked at or modified, and then the recent minutes if you're a minutes taker that you've either looked into or modified. And so one of the first things you can do whenever you log into Legistar is going to be going up here to your local settings, and we're going to change a couple of our local settings here to kind of make it easier for you all going forward. So you're going to go down to your legislative file section here, and this is going to be the settings that stay consistent. Every time you create a legislative file on Legistar, it's going to carry over these settings. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to add your contact email on a new file. And so what this does is this allows Jordan and I, or anybody that has a question on a legislative file, to see who created it. So if we have questions or we need to contact somebody on a particular legislative file, we know who to contact. If you don't enable that, it's just going to be a blank contact, and we have to go in on the back end to see who created it, to see who we need to follow up with. The second section is going to be the default body or default file control body. So if you're a person that is always creating agenda items for either city council or agenda items for a particular board or commission, right? So if you're the person responsible in your department or your division for creating the planning commission agenda every time, you can set this to automatically create an item. When you create an item, that's going to be automatically assigned to the planning commission or to the veterans commission, senior commission, whatever you're creating that item for. If you know you're always creating a presentation item for your department or division, or minutes like I am since I'm the clerk, or any other type of file, you can set the default file type. So every time you create a file and you click new, it's automatically going to create either the minutes every time or an ordinance or something else. All right, Robert's got a question here. Give me just one moment. When I click an agenda on recent agendas or on the agenda button, my access is denied. Is it because I only create files and not agendas? You shouldn't have that access denied language, Robert. Let's follow up separately because I'm not sure why that would be. I know a lot of people run into issues whenever they're either creating agendas or trying to view items that if they don't have their default control body set, it won't pull up for them for some reason. So you might want to look at this setting and that may clear up that issue for you. Again, setting up your default department so we know whenever Jordan and I create the work schedule, what item is assigned to what department or division. You're going to want to set this up in your local settings. So every time you create a police item, it's going to automatically default to the police department so we know who to assign that item on the work schedule to. And I believe that covers the legislative file section that you'll want to set up whenever you log in. So you can click save and then you can go back to home. And so now we're going to get into actually creating a legislative file. So in order to do that, we're going to go over here to the Files tab. It's going to take a second to load. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit New, obviously, up here at the very top. And so the way that you'll want to create items in Legistar going forward is working top to bottom, left to right. So when we create items in Legistar, the file ID is automatically assigned, and we set up these auto numberings in the file ID at the beginning of every year. So we take care of this portion. The type, again, whenever I change my local settings, my default settings were minutes. So every time I create a new item, it's always going to be the minutes item. And I can come in here and change it if I need to. The default status is going to be draft, and we're not going to touch that whenever we typically create items, unless you're creating them for your boards and commissions. And at that point, you can just make them agenda ready. Again, in my local settings, I have the city council set as my default body because I'm always creating items for city council. If you set yours to the marijuana licensing authority, it would automatically pop up here if that was in your settings. Then we're going to assign an agenda date. One thing to remind people is please, when you're either getting items to create from your department supervisor, director, double check the work schedule to make sure that one, there is availability, and then two, that you've got the date correct in here. 9 times out of 10, whenever somebody says that they created an item, but it didn't appear on the work schedule, it's because they didn't use the calendar here or check the work schedule. They actually manually typed in the date and they fat fingered it and it got the wrong date. So always double check the agenda date and make sure that there's room on the work schedule. Ooh, I need to take a breath. That's a lot of information. All right. So once we have our main information up here, we're going to go down here to these tabs. And so the first tab is going to be the text file. We commonly refer to this file or this tab here as the council communication, because this is where all the information for the file outside of the attachments and then the internal notes is going to live. And so in order to create a text file, we're going to click on the edit button and then we're going to click new right here. And so this is automatically going to pull in the template for a council communication. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the title. And it's very important to note here that the title and the body that appears in every single council communication template has to stay here. You guys cannot change that, because if you do, it's either not going to pull in the title of your item or it's not going to pull in the body that's below here. So think of this as like, I don't know, computer code, right? And Legistar needs the title and the ... body in order to pull in the rest of the information that lives underneath those two tags. So the title, this generally needs to be either if it's a presentation or administrative business item, what the title of that item is, right? Ratification of the mayor's signature on a letter, presentation on a public safety update. If this is a legislative item, it needs to be the title, or not needs, it must be the title of the legislative document. So it either needs to be the title of the ordinance or the title of the resolution. If you're creating an item and you don't have the finalized version of the resolution or ordinance from the city attorney's office, you can put a working title in here for the time being just to create the item as a general name. And then whenever you get that finalized version of the ordinance or resolution back, you need to make sure that the title's updated appropriately. So once we update the title or add the title, we have the summary and background information. The summary and background information is extremely important for city council, other staff members, and the general public to know what an item is, why it's coming before council, what impact it's either going to have on the city's budget, the staff resources needed for it, and possible options or alternatives for council to consider when proposing this item. So I'm going to give a couple examples on the screen here in just a second of what a really good, in my opinion, council communication looks like. Staff responsible, obviously the department head, and then the staff member presenting should be the person that in the time of Zoom or whenever we're back in person, it's going to be the person that if council pulls this either off consent or has specific questions, is the person that can answer those questions or the person that's providing the presentation during the meeting. Let's see, we got a couple more questions here. Yes, Robert. He says to provide the legal basis for the ordinance if challenged, correct? And then Glennis asks if there is a council communication template to throw into there. We're going to get to that, Glennis. There's actually a new feature in Legistar that we've got where we have a council communication template that if you draft it in a Word document, which is a lot easier to work in than this yellow ugly screen, you can just upload that Word document in here, not have to type in here. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. Thank you for that question. The next two sections are going to be the financial impact section and the funding source. So if there's a specific dollar amount for a contract or a specific amount that it's going to cost the city or funds that we're going to receive, we need to know that financial impact and then the source either that we're going to expend from or that those funds are getting deposited into. It's also important to note that the financial impact just isn't a monetary value, right? There's an impact on staff resources, time, materials. There may be supplies or other impacts to the budget that council or the public might want to be aware of. So it's not just a dollar amount to a contract. If there's a program you're proposing or anything like that, there's also financial considerations that should be included in this section. Staff recommendation, right? Is staff recommending to approve an alternative, not approve the item, or kick it to a board or commission for further input. And then the suggested motion should be what Jordan and I should put either in the script for council to use during their meeting, right? So a motion to X, Y, or Z. Or for your board or commission members to know, right? Planning commission, zoning board of adjustment, or any other board or commission should have a suggested motion right here as well. And so one thing that's important, so the ... title, right? We're going to add a title. And that's going to pop in that title box that we left blank earlier at the top of the screen. But one thing we need to emphasize here is that the council communication should be an Arial regular 12-point font for all items, and not just for city council items, but we're asking people for boards and commissions that create items, please also use Arial 12-point font regular. That way, all council communications, both for boards and commissions and city council and any other public agendas, all have the same formatting. So In order to do that, you can just hit a Control A while we're in here. Go over here to the font section, and then a dialog box is going to pop up where you can do Arial, regular, 12-point font, and it'll change everything. I clicked on the wrong one there. I clicked on narrow. Arial, regular, 12-point font. And so once we're done with our council communication, we can click save and go back. You'll notice that the title automatically pops up here in the box because that dot dot title catches anything underneath here and between the dot dot body and throws it in here. So a couple good council communications that we want to show off here to kind of give you an example of the level of detail and depth and information that is both good, again, for the council, staff, and the public. So let me pull up that list here real quick and we will throw those up there. All right, so one we've got here is Pres 21-112. So this is the council composition public input presentation, which is going before council on 3/22. So major kudos to Robert Sheasley and the city's attorney's office for putting together this council communication. So if we look here, right, in the summary and background information, we have actions taken prior to this meeting. Sub paragraphs related to the kinds of information that council is going to want to consider when receiving the presentation during this meeting. We've got voting alternatives for council to consider, and then options that we're proposing council consider and direct staff to take going forward after this meeting. We've also got additional readings for council to have reference to either source materials or outside materials that they may want to read if they're interested in discussing this topic further or exploring this topic further. We've got the staff responsible outlined here, both me and Mr. Sheasley, and then he's also considered the financial impact. Again, staff resource for public engagement. Changes to the 2021 election would add additional financial and staff resource costs. So this is a good one. Again, the level of detail, the options, the information that's good for both council and the public. Another one that we've got here, just passed last night, it's going to be Ordinance 2266. And this is our oil and gas ordinance that passed last night. So you guys, again, can see the level of detail that's gone into this council communication. This is providing council with as much, and the public, with as much information of what it is, steps taken to get to this ordinance, key topics within the ordinance. We've got updates from the first reading that council considered or from presentations, additions of motions and draft motion language to make during the meeting and the effects of those motions. And then we have staff recommendations, recommendations for motions on first reading and recommendations for motions on second reading. Again, a very, very detailed text file helps council make informed decision and have the information they need to direct staff or vote on items, and for the public to know what council is considering, and if they want to ever register to speak on an item or might want to reference something in here, it's good for the public to have this. And then other staff as well, if we ever get questions or want to look at an item. And we'll do one more here and move on to our next tabs. And this is going to be the breed specific ban ordinance. And so again, very detailed information on the background of the legislation, pros and cons to the legislation and proposed updates. We've got the additional resources, again, additional materials for council and the public to look at that staff reference when putting together this ordinance and this council communication. And then the suggested motion again. So these are, again, really detailed, informative council communications that should be the standards when drafting your council communication. And not every council communication needs to be quite this detailed, right? If you just have a presentation that is a minor update or an administrative business item that is self-explanatory, our executive sessions don't have background information or council communications, because all that information is, behind the executive session. So there are certain circumstances where a council communication or a detailed council communication isn't always going to be required, but 9 times out of 10, the more and better information you can provide to the council and the public, the better. And so now that we've shown examples, we're going to go back to our draft item that we created. And Glennis had asked earlier about a council communication template. And so I'm going to let Jordan hop in here and share his screen and show you guys how to upload a council communication template. This is a template we're going to provide after this training for you all to use going forward if you prefer to draft your council communications in Word, again, instead of in this ugly yellow text box. So Jordan, I'll turn it over to you here.
All right, thank you very much. Again, they are working on my internet right now, so if I all of a sudden just stop talking and disappear, that is what happened. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And so we are actually going to click on this one we have left over, and this is going to be the template that we're going to use as an example. So as you can see, it has the ... title, the ... body, staff responsible, staff presenting, financial impact, funding source, recommended, whether this was for the city council, for a board or commission, or for, like the ECA, GID. And this is going to be saved as an RTF, a rich text file. Now, in order for this to work, I just wanted to show this as an example, you have to have the document closed. And we actually have one of these that we are going to send out after the training, as Dylan was saying earlier, that is going to be just the template format. So you can work inside this document, save it, and close it. And then we are going to go to Legistar. I'm going to go into the text editing area. And then up here where it says new, we're going to click this arrow for the drop-down menu, import. We're going to look for that file, and it says rich text format, sorry. And we are going to open it. Yes. And then it's automatically going to bring everything, all the text from that document into the text box in Legistar. And we have that template document set up right now as Arial Regular 12. So it should be good, but again, if you needed to change it or you just wanted to double check, you can Control A to select all of it, click font, and then just make sure that the font style and size is good to go. Click save and go back, and then boom, it's already generated our title up here, and then you have your council communication. I am going to give it back over to Dylan because I would hate to be in the middle of explaining something and then lose internet. So again, I apologize for that. Thank you all very much for dealing with my situation.
Perfect. Thank you, Jordan. All right. So next steps, after we've got our item assigned, we've got the council communication in there with the title. Now we're going to move over. The history tab is going to contain any information where council would or your board or commission would take action on an item and allow you to go to those minutes specifically and see exactly what the action was taken, what the votes were, what the motion was, if it passed or if it failed. So I can show you here real quick what that looks like with an item. So if you're ever looking for the history or votes of an item, you can come in here if you know the file ID or file ID. And you can look in here and see the notes that were entered for your minutes for your boards or commissions, or that Jordan and I entered as part of our minutes for city council. And then you can see the the motion language. So who made the motion, what the motion was, who seconded it, and then you see that it's passed. And if you ever need to go back to the actual votes, you can click on the votes down here. It'll take you over here to your minutes tab, and then it'll take you to the item with the votes that were taken in Legistar for that. And then if you need to go back, you can go back. Again, this is informational. This is not anything that you need to enter when creating a new item. So going back to our draft item, the next tab is going to be the attachments tab. This is where you're going to upload any and all attachments for your item. It's important to note that legislative items, so your ordinances and your resolutions, those must be included are uploaded as a Word document. So Jordan and I can add the introduced by, we can clean up the formatting, and we can get it prepared to make it agenda ready. And then any presentations, background attachments, or other attachments that you would like to add here for both the council and the public to access will go here. And so if we throw up an attachment, I don't know what I have. Okay, draft massage facility license application. Thank you, Tiffany. So this will upload. We're gonna we don't have to mess with anything down here. If we need to retitle this, we can do so over here in the name section. It's important to note that we should have general but descriptive. That's kind of an oxymoron. We should have obvious names for items. So if this is my resolution that I'm uploading for an item, it should just be titled a resolution. If this is my presentation, right, we just need to title it presentation. And then the name will stick once you rename it. And so it's important that the attachments are listed in our publicly published agendas. So we need to make sure that they're title case, that they're descriptive enough for people to know what they are, and that they're presentable, right? So having something that's, massage underscore draft application.dg, that isn't a professional attachment name that we should probably have on our agendas. It should be something descriptive, but informative and presentable because it's in title case. After we have all of our attachments, you can change the order by using these up and down arrows and move attachments up or attachments down in the order that you want. Generally, the legislative item should be the top, and then any exhibit should be immediately underneath that, and then any supplemental materials such as presentations, background information, other attachments should be as follows below those. The details tab is very important internally for Jordan and I for council items. You don't need to fill in a file name because we generally use the title that's assigned up here. The requesting department, right? If you went to your local settings that we talked about at the beginning of this training and change it to your department, it's automatically going to be right here. So it's going to fill in for you. So you don't have to select that option. If you don't have that option turned on in your local settings, you need to fill in the department. So we know who to assign the item to on the work schedule if this is a council item. The drafter, again, we had the add email address on file creation, so it's automatically in here. If you don't have that option turned on, you need to type your email address in here. Then the notes tab. This is extremely important for Jordan and I. This is where you should include the estimated time that your item is going to take on a city council agenda so we can properly estimate the time that each agenda is going to last on the work schedule. And so this allows us to make sure that whenever we're having our agenda setting meetings with the leadership team on Mondays, that we know how long an agenda is anticipated to last, if items either need to be moved or if there's room to add items, or if we need to close an agenda because it's approached its time limit. For those of you that don't know, city council agendas have a maximum time of 4.5 hours unless council votes during the meeting to extend that time. So generally, whenever agendas are estimated to hit about 4.5 hours, we're going to close that agenda. And some of you have seen these emails come through from Jordan or myself where we say that the agenda has been closed because it's reached the max amount of time. If something's urgent, you need to work with the city manager's office to get it approved to be added to that agenda. If you have an ordinance, those require a first reading and then a second reading. If that second reading needs to be fast tracked, you need to include details in here that it's fast tracked and to what agenda date. Or if you have the second reading date, you can put the second reading date in here so we know which agenda to assign it to. If there's a public hearing on this agenda, you need to include that in here so we make sure that Jordan and I issue those public hearing notices appropriately ahead of the agendas. So once we have the details, the attachments, and the text file, that should complete the draft agenda item. Now, the approval tracking is where once an agenda item drafter has finished drafting an item, this is where they can send it off for approval by either their department supervisor or department director, the city attorney's office if it's a legislative file, and then this deputy city clerk to make it agenda ready for city council items. If you all route your items for approval for your boards and commissions, you can also set up your approval sequences in here as well. We can establish sequence templates to where if you know that every PRG advisory commission item needs to go to, for example, Chad Redden and then Carolyn Keith to make it agenda ready, you can do so in here, or Jordan and I can set up those sequences every time for you to where you can come down here to the add sequence, click on parks, whatever it may be, and then it'll automatically add the appropriate people in here. And then all you have to do is click start. If you need to manually add people, right? If this is something unique, or if you don't have an approval sequence set up, you can manually add the people that you need to sign off on this item before it's considered agenda ready, either for your board or commission or for city council items. So at minimum, an item should go to Jordan for approval for city council items, or whoever you establish in your department or your division for board and commission items. In order to manually add somebody, we're going to click the new button down here. We're going to find that person that is designated to approve agenda items over here on our right screen under approver name. The action type is going to be approver because we're going to ask him to review and approve the item. The email template is going to be the individual review request. And the due date should be 2 to 3 days. It's important to note that agendas per the Colorado Open Meetings Law need to be published at least 24 hours in advance. So you want to make sure that 2 days out isn't going to be after an agenda should be published. So if we have a meeting on Monday and I'm sending this on Thursday, this should be 1 day to require it to be reviewed and approved by Friday so we can publish on Friday. And that's applicable basically for every public meeting, board or commission, city council meeting. We have to have at least 24 hours notice. After I've added Jordan, if I need to add anybody else, I just click the new button down here again. It's going to take a second and ask if I want to amend the approval sequence, and I'm going to click yes. I'm going to add myself, again, approver, individual review request, and I'm going to make it 1 day because Jordan gets 2 days. And we've got to publish the agenda in 4 days. So once I have everybody that I need to review and approve that item, I'm going to click start. Legistar is going to think for a minute. It's going to ask if we want to start. We're going to click yes. So it's important to note a couple things whenever we start the approval sequences and send it off for approval. It's going to lock the item for further editing. And it's going to put the status in ATS review. So Jordan reviews all city council agenda items on Tuesday morning to see what's still in draft and what's been sent off. So if you start this, it's going to be an ATS review, which means it's not going to pop up on Jordan's report. And then once everybody's reviewed and approved it, it's going to change to agenda ready. So after that, item's done, it's been reviewed and approved, it's agenda ready, and then it's ready to be put on a either city council agenda or a board or commission agenda. We're going to have additional trainings for those of you that publish agendas and take minutes. We're not going to get into this time because not everybody does so, and I'm not going to waste everybody's time doing that. So within the next couple of weeks, those of you that create agendas and publish agendas, you'll be seeing a training invite similar to what we've gone over today, but for publishing agendas. So that wraps up how to create an agenda in Legistar. Again, very, very important that you create the appropriate file type, assign it the appropriate agenda date, and you've got a very good detailed and thorough council communication in this text file. You got the attachments listed appropriately and in the right order. You've got the details of the estimated time that it's going to take and any other information such as public hearing information or second reading date, and that you sent the item off for the appropriate review and approval persons. Again, there's sequences down here that Jordan and I can either set up for you or amend if you're running into any issues. But other than that, that's how to create an agenda item in Legistar and kind of the standards that we're asking everybody to abide by going forward. So with that, I'm going to open up. Does anybody have any questions, tips or tricks, anything like that that you guys would like to ask of Jordan or myself? Again, you can type it in the chat or raise your hand and we can unmute you. Hey, Debbie, you got a question?
So you're going to put this together in like a paper format or a PDF format so that we can review it?
Yep, Jordan and I already have that item ready. So after tomorrow's training, we're going to send the entire list of those that attended the training, the written procedure. It goes over the exact same information, the exact same order with screenshots.
Okay.
The templates for resolutions and ordinances for you all to use, so you don't have to create your own or worry about the formatting. We've already established templates for those. And then the council communication template as well. So we're going to provide you guys with as much documentation and templates that we can to make it easier on everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Does anybody else have any other questions? You got another question, Deb?
Can you answer Glennis's chat question as far as being in the one area having to be all caps?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I skipped over that question. Let me see here. Give me just 1 second, see if I have anything here. I do. All right, give me just a second. All right, so yes, let's say I have a resolution that I've created and that the city manager's office is blessed. Let me share my screen here. Give me just a second. It's taking just a little bit here. All right. So I had my working title in here, just to reserve a spot on the agenda or a draft title. I didn't know the final title. And now I've got the approved resolution or ordinance back from the city manager or from the city attorney's office, excuse me. So once I have that, I can take it from the Word document and I can just copy and paste in here. The font may be a little weird and the formatting may be weird, but again, you can do the Control A. You can change the font to Arial, regular, and 12, and it'll take it in there. It's important to note that the ordinances and resolutions, they should be all caps, no bolding, Arial 12. For regular like presentation items or administrative business items, right? Those should be title case. As such, right? So just a general descriptive title. But yes, for legislative items, all caps, no bold, Arial 12. And then again, if once you update it and save it, it's going to ask if you want to replace the title, and you can click yes, and then it's going to pop up here every time. So all you have to do is change it in one area, and it's going to change it in the other.
Cool.
Alrighty. Does anybody else have any other questions? Going once, going twice, 3 times. All right. Well, we're going to consider this done. Again, we've got this recorded. It's going to be on the intranet for further reference. Sometime after tomorrow's second training, we'll send you guys out the written procedure, the template documents, and the draft RTF file for you guys to use for your council communications. If you guys run into any issues with Legistar, have any other questions, always feel free to reach out to Jordan and I, and we'll get you squared away the best that we can. Other than that, I greatly appreciate everybody, and you guys all have a great day. Thank you all.